These days, we are used to having wheelchair ramps and handicap parking and closed captioning and accessible seating and entertainment venues. But less than 50 years ago, all of these things and more were not the norm or the law, leaving people with disabilities facing exclusion, isolation, and discrimination. Today, we are discussing Judith Judy Heumann, the mother of the disability rights movement, who was instrumental in changing how society views and treats the disabled. Judy Heumann was born in Philadelphia in 1947 to German immigrants. After contracting polio at 18 months old, she was left a quadriplegic with limited movement in her arms and used a wheelchair her entire life. As a child, her father had to carry her up the stairs of the synagogue they attended to go to services and Sunday school. When she was 5 years old, her mother took her to register for kindergarten at the local public school. The principal turned them away, saying that Judy would not be allowed to go to school there. In her wheelchair, she was deemed a fire hazard. Undaunted, Judy's mother tried to get her admitted to the local yeshiva, where the principal told her that if Judy learned Hebrew, she would be admitted. And Judy spent weeks learning Hebrew, but when they returned to the yeshiva, she was still not allowed in. Instead, the New York Board of Education told her parents that Judy was eligible for in-home learning. This turned out to be a teacher sent to their home twice a week for 1 hour. In between in-home teaching visits, Judy was a prolific reader. Her father loved to provoke debate at the dinner table, and Judy later said, "In our house, if you had an opinion on something, you had to be prepared to defend it." It was a lesson that would end up serving her well the rest of her life. It wasn't until she was 9 years old that Judy was able to attend public school. But even then, she was in a segregated classroom with other disabled children in the basement of the school, not allowed to socialize or learn with what they called the upstairs kids. It would take until high school for Judy to finally attend school with her peers in a mainstream classroom. The summer after she started public school, Judy began spending summers at Camp Jened, a camp for disabled people. It was there that she first experienced what she described as her first taste of freedom. It was a place designed specifically for disabled people. At camp, Judy could be Peter Pan in the camp play, choose what she wanted to wear, have a boyfriend. Camp, she thought, was what the world could feel like if society included them. Many of the campers and counselors would go on to become disability rights activists in their own rights, and Judy would work with many of them. After high school, Judy attended Long Island University with dreams of becoming a teacher. But the New York Board of Education had never hired a teacher in a wheelchair, and when Judy applied to get her teaching license, they denied her. She was once again deemed a fire hazard in her wheelchair, a danger to children who they believed she would be unable to help in an emergency. At 22 years old, Judy sued the New York Board of Education and won when the Board of Education eventually caved and settled without trial. Judy became the first wheelchair user to teach in New York. The experience led her and some friends to found the civil rights organization Disabled in Action, which was run by and for disabled people. In 1975, Judy moved to Berkeley, California, where she obtained a master's degree in public health at UC Berkeley and became involved with the Center for Independent Living and immersed herself in the disabled activist community. April 5th, 1977. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 was the first federal civil rights protection for people with disabilities, and the U.S. Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare at the time, Joseph Califano, was refusing to sign off on regulations for Section 504 of the Act. Judy and other disability activists had been tracking Section 504 for years and working hard to get it signed into law. It had languished in the Nixon and Ford administrations, but President Carter had campaigned on the promise of signing it. But Secretary Califano delayed and kept delaying and refusing to sign it. And finally, the disabled community had enough. Judy and other disability activists organized protests at 10 health, education, and welfare offices across the country: Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Boston, New York City, Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Dallas, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. Judy was one of the leaders of the San Francisco protest. After a rally outside, they stormed a building where they demanded to speak to the regional director, Joe Maldonado. When Judy explained to him why they were there and what they wanted, she was shocked and furious to discover that Maldonado had no idea of what Section 504 even was. Looking him straight in the eyes, Judy told him that 504 was critical to the lives of disabled people and that they weren't leaving until they got assurances the bill would be signed. Maldonado and his staff left the office. Judy spoke to the crowd and asked them to stay until the regulations were signed. It was a big ask. Many of the protesters needed personal assistance with things like personal hygiene and getting dressed. Many had medications or medical devices that they would be without, or dietary needs that couldn't be met. At the very least, they would be uncomfortable, sleeping on hard floors and chairs and benches, without changes of clothes or access to showers. But over 100 people committed to staying. The protests in the other cities fizzled out within a few days, but thanks to the work and organization of Judy and the other leaders, the San Francisco sit-in lasted 26 days. They organized committees to handle the press. They made a makeshift refrigerator with a box and an air conditioner to keep medicines cold. They reached out to other civil rights groups for help. The Black Panthers provided hot food daily. When the phones were cut off, they used sign language interpreters to sign through the windows to people outside to keep information flowing to the press. They created a recreation committee in charge of keeping morale up, and they raced wheelchairs in the halls and played cards and sang songs. They had an Easter egg hunt and a Passover Seder. They stayed after the hot water was cut off. They stayed through a bomb threat. Judy lit candles and had Shabbat dinner in a freight elevator. After 26 days, Secretary Califano signed the regulations, and the protesters left the building to be met by a crowd of people cheering for them and chanting, "Power to the people." In 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law by President George Bush. The foundation of the ADA is the Rehabilitation Act, which Judy and her colleagues fought so hard for. Judy Heumann would go on to many, many more accomplishments, including serving in the U.S. Department of Education and the State Department for Presidents Clinton and Obama, respectively. She was proudly Jewish and once said, "The Jewish community has an obligation, I believe, to be leaders." She became a bat mitzvah as an adult in Berkeley after the synagogue she attended made the bima accessible for her wheelchair, of course. She was a longtime member of Adas Israel in Washington, D.C., where she co-chaired the Inclusion Task Force. She embodied the Jewish ideals of tikkun olam, repairing the world, and lifnei iver lo titen michshol, do not put a stumbling block before the blind. There is much more to her remarkable life and story. To learn more about her, you can read her memoir, Being Human, an unrepentant memoir of a disability rights activist. She is also prominently featured in the Oscar-nominated documentary Crip Camp, which can be found on Netflix. Judy passed away in 2023, having changed the world and countless lives. May her memory continue to be a blessing. Who's Who Among the Jews will be back next week, so stay tuned.